Welcome to Damn Good Movie Memories with your host, Brian Davis. This podcast is the cure for your long commute and super boring workday. Hey there, it's Brian Davis, and for this week's episode, we're going to cover the movie Werewolf of London from 1935. The studio was Universal Pictures. Release date was May 13th, 1935. The running time, 75 minutes, and was in black and white. Leonard Maltin, from his classic movie guide, gives it 2.5 out of 4 stars. He writes, the first film about werewolves is dated, but still effective. Scientist Henry Hall stumbles onto a curse of lycanthropy and terrorizes London as a mad killer. Walter Oland is fun as a mysterious man who warns Hull of impending doom. Now, most folks forget about this film and immediately think of The Wolfman from 1941, starring Lon Chaney Jr. as the first werewolf film. It actually took many years before I finally saw this film because it was never aired on television when I was growing up, though I'd always known about it because I used to check out these horror books from my local library that had these wonderful pictures from the films, which would give details about classic monster films. There was one book just called The Wolfman, where the front cover was an up-close shot of Henry Hall from The Werewolf of London, and was written by Ian Thorne and published in 1977. But my favorite of these books was simply titled Movie Monsters, which was written by Thomas Aylesworth and published in 1975. All right, let's get into the film. So it opens up in Tibet as a renowned botanist named Dr. Wilfred Glendon, that's Henry Hall, and he's in search of a rare plant that supposedly receives energy from the moon. When you hear the words moon and wolves, you can already guess where this is headed if you enjoy horror films. The journey will be treacherous and dangerous in the Tibetan mountains, and Wilfred is warned against looking for the flower by a local priest.
Pax vobiscum, my sons.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
You're both English, are you not?
Yes, Father. You're the first white man we've seen in 3 months.
You two are the first I've seen in 40 years.
My name is Glendon. This is my assistant, Hugh Rennick. We're botanists.
Oh, he's a botanist. I'm a nobody he brought along out of kindness. I wanted to see the last places on Earth.
Why are you here?
We're looking for the Marifeza lupino lumino, strange flower which grows only in Tibet and which, it is said, takes its life from the moon.
Is there really such a flower, Father?
There are some things it is better not to bother with.
Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Our coolies tell us the valley we want to visit is filled with demons.
Yes, I'm afraid they thought you were one of them. That's why they ran away.
I've never been into that valley, and I've never known a man to return from it.
Then we were right. This is the place. According to this map, it's just beyond that ridge, just off the trail. You game?
Wish us luck, Father.
Get the ponies.
Right.
You are foolish, but without fools, there would be no wisdom. Pax vobiscum.
Thank you, Father.
So, without fools, there would be no movie plots as well. So there's that too. Well, up in the mountains, the sound of wolves howling haunt Wilfred and Hugh, his assistant, along with some mysterious invisible force that seems to prevent the duo from moving at times. Wilfred finally discovers the rare plant that he's been looking for and attempts to remove it. In the shadows, a strange being, like a wolfman, sneaks up behind them. Wilfred stabs the wolf with his knife, but he's bitten in the process. We then see Wilfred at his lab in London with the rare plant, waiting for it to bloom so he can run experiments. And the goal is to create artificial moonlight. So Wilfred is married to Lisa, that's played by Valerie Hobson. She was actually the love interest in The Bride of Frankenstein. While Wilfred would rather spend all of his free time working on his experiments, his wife isn't thrilled that she barely sees him. During a party, we meet an old flame of Lisa's named Paul, that's Lester Matthews. We are also introduced to another botanist named Dr. Yogami, played by Walter Oland, who famously played the character of Charlie Chan. Dr. Yogami is interested in Wilfred's journey to Tibet.
May I congratulate you, sir, on the amazing collection of plants you have assembled here.
Thank you.
Evolution was in a strange mood when that creation came along.
Yes, yes.
It makes one wonder just where the plant world leaves off and the animal world begins.
Have I met you before, sir?
In Tibet, once. But only for a moment. In the dark.
In the dark?
Let me introduce myself again. I am Dr. Yogami.
How do you do, sir?
Like yourself, a student and nurturist of plants.
Oh, Dr. Yogami.
Pardon?
I understand you to say that we met in Tibet.
Yes. And unless I'm mistaken, we were both on a similar mission.
Yes?
Would it be intrusive if I should ask you if you were successful
In what?
in obtaining a specimen of the Mariphasa lumina lupina, the phosphorescent wolf flower? Why, you know, it blooms only under the rays of the moon. My specimens died on a journey back.
As a scientist, sir, as a botanist, you actually believe that this flower takes its life from moonlight?
I do.
So far, I've been unsuccessful in persuading mine to bloom by moonlight or any other kind of light.
Let me see them.
Very sorry, I'll have to ask you to excuse me.
May I go along with you?
This flower is an antidote for what?
Werewolfery. Lycanthrophobia is the medical term for the affliction I speak of.
And do you expect me to believe that a man so afflicted actually becomes a wolf under the influence of the full moon?
No. The werewolf is neither man nor wolf, but a satanic creature with the worst qualities of both.
I'm afraid, sir, that I gave up my belief in goblins, witches, personal devils, and werewolves at the age of 6.
But that does not alter the fact that in workaday modern London today, at this very moment, there are 2 cases of werewolfery known to me.
And how did these unfortunate gentlemen contract this medieval unpleasantness?
From the bite of another werewolf. These men are doomed, but for this flower, the Mariphasa.
There you are, Wilfred.
Your wife?
Yes. This is my wife, Dr. Yogami.
How do you do?
May I visit your conservatories again one day?
Of course, yes.
Thank you.
Strange man.
Yes.
A satanic creature. Awesome. Slayer would be proud back in 1935. Anyway, Wilfred continues his experiment and does get one of the buds to bloom. However, he starts to feel the effects of his bite in Tibet. And once the flower blooms, one of his hands starts to change and grow hair like a wolf. Wilfred takes a blood sample from his hand, and his hand suddenly changes back to normal. While Wilfred continues his experiments round the clock, Lisa and Paul get cozy. No surprise there. In the meantime, Dr. Yogami pays Wilfred a visit.
Dr. Yogami, didn't they tell you that I wasn't seeing anyone today?
I thought perhaps you might see me.
Come another day, please.
Another day will be too late. What will happen before morning, I cannot say. Tonight is the first night of the full moon.
Still harping on that old wives' tale of yours, eh?
Good to earn old wives' tale.
Exactly what do you want of me?
2 blossoms of the Marifesa flower in there would save 2 souls tonight.
Tonight? I thought you said the Marifesa was a cure.
No. An antidote. Effective only for a few hours. Won't you let me see the results of your experiment?
Sorry. When my experiments are completed, I will show their results to the entire world. Not before. Now, sir, I must wish you good day.
Then there is nothing more to be said?
Nothing.
Good day. But remember this, Dr. Glendon. The werewolf instinctively seeks to kill the thing it loves best.
So in that case, Wilford would just kill himself if he turned into a werewolf, right? I think Dr. Yogami hinted that it meant Lisa, but yeah, whatever. Wilford pretty much is interested in himself at this point and nothing else. After meeting with Dr. Yogami, Wilford does some research about lycanthropia and how to prevent the ability to turn into a werewolf. According to his medical book, only the rare Tibetan flower he possesses can stop the transformation. Otherwise, the werewolf will have to kill at least one human being each night when the moon is full. If the werewolf doesn't kill a person, well, it will be forever in that wolf form. This is actually an interesting take on the tale because I don't remember this ever being part of the so-called rules of being a werewolf, but I actually kind of like it. That night, Wilford's cat hisses and almost attacks him. You guessed it, the moon will be full soon, and he begins to change. Now, this transition in the film isn't quite the same as 5 years later with Lon Chaney Jr., but it's not bad for 1935. The subtle transitions of Henry Hall walking out the door and using a different frame wipe to show his transition, it's not bad. Henry Hall's makeup gives him kind of a widow's peak, almost like a Dracula effect for his hairline. So if you're used to the Lon Chaney Jr. version, you might be disappointed, but I don't have any issues with it, especially for the time period. Back to the film, Wilford has now fully transformed, and in his mind, he needs to attack both Lisa and Paul because those were the last 2 people he saw before he changed. The other difference with other werewolf movies is that Wilford actually takes the time to put on clothes as opposed to having his existing wardrobe, that he usually wears being torn to shreds. That's what usually happens. It's almost like the Incredible Hulk. In any case, he puts on a London-style overcoat and cap before heading out to look for his prey. I guess the British are more dapper when looking for victims to tear to shreds. It's probably why Jack the Ripper had so many victims, but I digress. So Wilford ends up at the house where a party is being given by Lisa's Aunt Eddie, played by Spring Bingington. While Aunt Eddie lies down for a bit after being shaken by the howling noises, she gets another shock at her window.
All right, I'll go. Please, don't go up there. Mrs. Glendon, don't let any of the women come upstairs. Right, now just please, just a moment. You'll all stand back. What's wrong?
The devil's in here. He had green eyes. He clawed at me. He's covered with hair.
There, you had a bad nightmare, that's all.
Anyone dares to tell me I've been dreaming, I shall answer for the consequences.
Oh, nobody will.
Oh, come along. Come along. No, you must be. No, you sit down here. You'll be all right. My wicked worldliness has caught up with me at last. The bamboo of Garoka always said it would. Oh, there, never mind. Oh.
Of course, I'm not here in my official capacity, but I think I can say with conviction that no devil or any man has come through this window tonight.
Yes. I think our hostess has been mixing her drinks a little, don't you?
I think that's a very excellent deduction.
Why, that's a horrible feeling. I've been like it myself.
Oh, it's been real good time. It's getting quite late. I think the party must be over.
Shall we just have one before we go?
I will have one with pleasure.
I'll leave. I'll wait for you.
All right.
Can I drop there?
So while Wilfred didn't harm Aunt Eddie, he still needs to kill somebody before the night is through. And he finds his victim, a young woman walking the empty streets. The newspaper headlines describe the young woman as horribly mangled. All right, there's about 30 minutes left, and how will Wilfred be stopped? Because if you've seen a werewolf movie, you know there are limited ways to stop a werewolf from continuing their terror. Will it be the traditional silver bullet way or something else? And how many more people will Wilfred kill before he's stopped? Well, you're just going to have to check out the movie and see it for yourself. So while I definitely favor the Lon Chaney versions over Werewolf of London, of course, this is definitely a good film to check out if you want to see an early take on the werewolf legend. And there are a few differences for the story that actually might interest some. I think Walter Oland does a very good job as the fellow doctor. Plus, all these classic Universal monster movies are very brisk in pace at under 80 minutes, so you could do far worse when it comes to checking out a film. I will also say the best transition of Henry Hull into the werewolf does happen towards the end. They kind of saved the best for last. All right, some fun facts. Originally, the film was supposed to star Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, with Karloff as the main character and Lugosi as the Walter Oland character. Karloff was in the middle of filming Bride of Frankenstein, and of course he was unavailable, and Lugosi was making Mark of the Vampire. The famous makeup artist Jack Pierce, who was vital to the success of the early monster films, was in charge of the werewolf makeup in this film. Pierce wanted a much more elaborate look for the werewolf, but it was said that Henry Hull resisted in having the long process needed for Pierce's makeup vision. This was totally unlike Boris Karloff, who spent many grueling hours getting his makeup and prosthetics put on and off of him during Frankenstein. And of course later, Lon Chaney Jr. did the same thing. Pierce did get his makeup vision implemented 6 years later for the Wolfman and was ultimately vindicated. Much later, Hull said that the amount of time wasn't the cause for his pushback. Hull didn't want to be completely disguised as a wolf, as he was supposed to be the recognizable star that movie goers wanted to see. But it's kind of ironic that today, Hull is almost completely forgotten for this role, and Lon Chaney Jr. is the default actor when it comes to werewolf movie memories, so Hull, no matter what, it was going to be forgotten. You could kind of tell it was him. So the werewolf howl used in this film is a combination of Henry Hull's own voice and a recording of an actual timber wolf. The result is generally thought to have a far more realistic result than any of the subsequent werewolf films. And look, I would be remiss if you don't go back and listen to Warren Zevon's classic song Werewolves of London after watching this film. All right, we have a special guest, and that is Joseph Staub, because he loves his Universal monster movies. Yeah, but does he like this one? We're going to find out. Joseph does not hold back, which I love. And guess what? I'll be back next week to talk about yet another random movie from my DVD collection. All right, we are back with Joseph Staub, who loves his horror movies and especially Universal horror movies. I'm not sure he loves this one, though, so this should be an interesting talk. So welcome back, Joseph. We're going to talk about Werewolf of London.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yes, slight spoiler, but you might be right on that one. you may be correct.
So you've said on this podcast that The Wolfman is one of your favorites of the classic Universal monster films, but I think most people even forget that the very first Wolf movie was actually Werewolf of London. So when did you come across this film?
So I came across this film at around the same time as I really dove deep into Universal monsters, just because this movie was on the big box set that they put out. And that'll get into why I feel the way I feel about this movie. But I did not watch it right away. I came into it a couple years later, probably. So I've still known it for a decent amount of time, but it wasn't one that I kind of went to right away when I first really dove into the Universal monsters. Most likely because it didn't have anything to do with the continuity of like the main monsters, how they all kind of, the Monster Rally movies, and everything kind of feeds into that, especially when you talk about the Wolfman, then feeds into Frankenstein meets the Wolfman,
right?
The House movies, Abbott and Costello, all that stuff. This movie and She-Wolf of London kind of stand by themselves, especially when you get to She-Wolf of London, which that's just something completely different. But so this was one that I was aware of because of the box set, but also that might contribute when we get to why this may not be one of my favorite movies.
Sure. And I think that is the good part about the box set. While there are many non-essential films on there are some great ones. But yeah, I would say She-Wolf of London, and there's some of the Mummy movies get very repetitive, which eventually we will get to as well.
Oh, yes.
In general, like, what are your thoughts about Henry Hull's take on the werewolf?
His take on the werewolf itself, I think, actually is pretty decent.
Okay.
I think you can really kind of see how that would influence what would come later. My biggest problem with him is when he's not in the werewolf makeup in this movie. That's my biggest problem with his performance. I think he actually makes for a pretty good werewolf. I think he makes for a pretty lousy character in general, though.
Okay, let's just get into that then. So, what don't you like about Henry Hull? How does he fail as like the scientist, trying to transition to a werewolf?
I think that, and this could partially be because of just the plot of the movie in general, but he's an extremely unsympathetic character.
You're right.
Right. Especially when you look at other werewolves throughout film history. For this to be like the first major werewolf and to be this much of an absolute douche is just it's hilarious, actually, just how completely unsympathetic he plays this role. And it actually, there's a lot of themes that it kind of touches on of like, and this is not necessarily about his performance, but just about the film in general. It's very imperialistic Britain in a way where going to Tibet to get this flower and bring it back to Britain to experiment on it. I'm sorry. Like, you couldn't, there's no other way you could experiment with your moon machine, but to bring this literal one-of-a-kind, almost extinct plant from halfway across the world. It's just the plot of the film is ludicrous at points, but I think that contributes to what I dislike about Henry Hull's character, is that his character, I think, is extremely poorly written as a sort of the time scientist that all he cares about is his particular experiment, the glory and all the he wants to keep it a secret, and yet he throws a party and all of a sudden every single scientist is invited, but he can't even tell his wife about this experiment that he's doing.
And that brings up a good point, because we talked about the Invisible Man. So the Invisible Man starts right off the bat, he's invisible. So he's already kind of, manic and crazy and everything. So this is a little bit different. And you bring up a good point. If you don't like your main character, where do you go from there?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So while we kind of have the benefit of hindsight here, obviously the makeup was superior in The Wolfman because that was 6 years later. But what do you think about how the wolf makeup was for Werewolf of London, considering it was 6 years earlier?
I think you can definitely see, and of course, this makeup was also done by Jack Pierce, who would eventually do all of the Wolfman makeup for Lon Chaney Jr. But I think you can see the genesis of where he would eventually go with it in very kind of a rough sketch form. I think this is very much a kind of a first draft of what the werewolf makeup would eventually become. Of course, when we get to Lon Chaney's werewolf, that is when that basically influenced all werewolves in film from then on. Like that was the great influence. I mean, even Hammer Horror's Curse of the Werewolf, that was very similar makeup, into even more modern makeup for werewolves. It was all kind of influenced by that Lon Chaney makeup.
Sure.
In Werewolf of London, I think that it's a lot more human still. I mean, you can see a lot more of his human features in the makeup. And there's some choices that I'm just very confused by with the makeup. There's some things that was like, not exactly sure why Jack Pierce thought of that and said, that's what a werewolf looks like. But in general, I think it could be much worse. But you can kind of see where it would lead down the road as far as the iconic makeup 6 years later.
I think one of the ththings I really appreciate about older films is the time and the creativity used for the special effects and makeup, which you talked about. I personally feel that technology now kind of has made movies kind of lazy and kind of repetitive. What is your take on like CGI of today? Do you wish films could detach from technology and kind of go back to doing it, the hard way, but it actually made it more unique?
I think that is definitely something that a lot of filmmakers could stand to sort of get back to a little bit. Not necessarily saying that this film is a great example,
No.
because genuinely the transformation scene is one of the worst special effects I've ever seen in my life. It's not amazing in The Wolfman, but it is much more seamless than it is in this film, where literally he's walking in front of a clear back projection, and every time he walks behind a pillar, he comes out with more makeup on, and it looks really, really crappy. And especially when you watch a lot of other 30s movies and you see some of the special, like even 20s movies, there's a lot of silent movies with some amazing special effects.
Oh yeah.
And this is just, you can tell that this wasn't really that high on Universal's priority list,
right?
Because it was not given a director of any name. It was not given a leading actor of really much name. I mean, originally they were kind of throwing around either Bela Lugosi or Boris Karloff to be in this movie. As it turns out, neither one of them are. So that kind of shows you where this movie fell for Universal, especially in 1935. There's only one other movie in 1935 that studio was putting a lot of money into, and it certainly wasn't this one. It was one that one of the co-stars of this movie also was in. But for anyone listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, Bride of Frankenstein. But you can clearly tell that this was not high on Universal's priority list in 1935.
Right.
But I think that this is it's a good starting ground. You can tell there's a lot of things that would be changed, because I mean, even the werewolf mythology is very different from anything that there would be in pretty much. I mean, the werewolf mythology of the 1941 Wolfman pretty much influenced the werewolf mythology going forward, as far as like the kind of supernatural aspects of it. You really don't find a lot of that in this film. It's a lot more scientific in the original, in this film.
Do you like that? Do you like that it's like subtly different?
It's I go back and forth on it, because I mean, I'm just so, I mean, the iconic kind of nature of this, the supernatural aspects of the Wolfman, and Maria Ushpinskaya kind of giving that great speech about the nature of werewolves. And I think it's just it's a completely different kind of mythology here in this movie, because you never really get an explanation. All of a sudden he's just attacked by this thing in Tibet, and then all of a sudden he's a werewolf, and he finds out, okay, this other guy is the one that attacked me. And you never really get any explanation aside from, hey, if you stab yourself with this flower, it'll turn you back into a human, but only if you do it every single time.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of
a diabetes shot. Yeah.
Pretty much. And then also regular bullets can kill him.
Right.
You can definitely tell that the mythology isn't quite there yet.
Right.
And in general, I think that's one of the biggest kind of letdowns for me of this film. And getting back to what I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, the placement of this film in the box set is what kind of leads me to not be a huge fan of this movie. Because if anyone has either the 30 film box set or just the Wolfman set particularly, you'll know that the last disc of the set is Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London. So if you're going through it in order of how it is in the box set, you see all these kind of classic werewolf movies. You see the Wolfman, you see Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, you see House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and then you get to Werewolf of London, and you're like, huh.
Yeah, right. Where did this turd come from?
What is this? Is this like a fan movie that somebody made? Because it has nothing to do with the last 5 movies that I watched, which were pretty much an extended universe. It's always played by Lon Chaney Jr. The Wolfman is pretty much one of the only characters that actually has a pretty consistent line through those movies.
Sure.
And then you get to this, and it's just like, what is this?
Yeah,
that was kind of my reaction to it, and that was kind of why I've never been a huge fan of this movie, just because of the way that I was exposed to it. If I would have known this movie before I saw The Wolfman, I might feel differently.
Sure.
But
probably not.
Because it's genuinely, it is not a great film. Just on any level of production. Technically, it's not a great film. Acting wise, it's not a great film. I mean, even Valerie Hobson as Henry Hall's wife.
Yeah.
Not a great performance. Then again, she wasn't particularly that great in Bride of Frankenstein either.
No.
But I think that was kind of the level that you're at here when Valerie Hobson is the biggest name in your film.
Mm-hmm.
You might be in trouble. You might be creating a B tier Universal horror film at this point.
So, did you ever watch the Charlie Chan movies?
I did, yes.
Okay.
And
Walter Oland,
was Charlie Chan. And he was also Fu Manchu.
Right.
And that is another problematic part of this movie is that he is, as he was most of his career, playing an Oriental character.
Sure.
That was not reflective of his true racial identity, let's say, which was unfortunately very common at the time. As you said with Charlie Chan, it was a non-Asian actor playing an Asian character. And you kind of get the same thing with this character, that he is a non-Asian actor playing an Asian character. Although it's not nearly as on the nose as Charlie Chan.
No, and it's not, I mean, you think of Peter Lorre, he played Mr. Moto, so that's yeah, it's the same thing. Really, the Charlie Chan movies are interesting. They're actually kind of fun films. I get what you're saying. But Key Luke, I would think, is the most obviously authentic because he actually plays the number one son. So it's almost like you could have a sidekick, but you couldn't have the main actor.
Exactly, and I mean that would continue all the way into many years later. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. That was a problem that plagued the classic series of Doctor Who well into the 80s of not casting actors of a particular ethnicity in those roles and portraying actors in yellow face or in other kinds of makeup. And it was definitely something that was going on quite a bit in the 30s. Not nearly much to say it even later than that.
Sure. You mentioned it, and I'm glad you brought it up. Supposedly this film was supposed to have Karloff and Lugosi co-starring. Karloff would have been the wolf, and Lugosi would have been the professor, which I think is almost kind of a cool role reversal. Could this possibly have worked? I'm assuming you would have liked that much better.
I think I would have liked it a lot better because I think that those actors would have brought a different level of pathos to the role, I would say. And of course, we see what Bela Lugosi would do 6 years later when he was in The Wolfman, and one of his most understated roles, in my opinion. I'm interested to see what they could have done. I would certainly hope if they put those two in that they would have given it a better director. Because, I mean, if you look at the credits to Stuart Walker's name, they are practically nil. He has a total of around 10, 11 film credits, and I don't recognize really many of them. He did an adaptation of Great Expectations. He also did an adaptation of The Mystery of Edwin Drood, both Charles Dickens books, right before he did this film. And this was one of his last films as a director. And I can definitely understand why, because nothing about the direction of this film does anything for me, especially not when you think about some of the directors that have been in this kind of Universal monster range beforehand, thinking about James Whale or Todd Browning or people like that. Nothing in this film gives any kind of relation to what any of those directors would have done with something like this.
No, this is definitely like a B movie. I mean, you can
most definitely.
Yeah.
Especially once Lugosi and Karloff aren't going to be involved. You're immediately B movie status.
Sure. I don't hate this movie as much as you do, which is good because I'm glad I got that take on it. But yeah, it doesn't compare. I think this is purely for a completist, though. I mean,
most definitely.
Yeah. And it's like we're like that because we talk about the Abbott and Costello movies too. There's a ton that are just like we're watching them because they're in the set, but there's really only a handful that are truly great. I'm going to kind of go down a weird path here and tell me what you think. So, we talk about what could have been for certain actors. So, like, let's say this film was made with Karloff and Lugosi. Do you think AI in the future will kind of take those what ifs and recreate films based on those classic actors, based on what could have been at the time?
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I don't know if anyone is necessarily chomping at the bit to get an AI recreation of Werewolf of London with with Karloff and Lugosi, but I certainly think that would be for certain other movies where like there were actors that were
up for the role.
Really up for the role.
Yeah.
Thinking about things like, especially things that were like, think about what could have been things like Godfather 3 without Sofia Coppola,
right?
with anybody else in that role.
Julia Roberts supposedly was supposed to be
Julia Roberts, Winona Ryder
Yep.
in that role, or thinking about movies where an actor died before the movie was produced.
Right.
That an actor was supposed to be in a film but passed away before production.
Yep.
Things like that. I think that's definitely something, especially now that you see the kind of rise in this AI technology, what everyone used to call deep fakes.
Yeah.
What you even see, I mean, you go online, you see clips of different actors in film and television that are actually the people that were in it. And I definitely think that's an interesting thing to think about in the future, is especially older movies like this.
Right. They're not beloved. Yeah.
Not in any way. I mean, like you said, this is not one of the essential Universal monster movies by any stretch of the imagination. But like you said, what could have been maybe using AI to fix some of the effects, change some of the lead actor performances around a little bit. The world is pretty much open to a lot of that stuff, especially the more that this technology grows and people are able to do different things with it.
Right. All right. So one more kind of question before I get your final thoughts. Are you a fan of Warren Zevon? And the reason I bring that up, of course, is the song Werewolves of London. What do you think about Warren?
Oh, I don't know too much about Warren Zevon, but I do love that song. Okay. And I thought about this as I was kind of getting my thoughts together about this film. I love that the title of the song is Werewolves of London, but it's actually its only reference is to Lon Chaney Jr.
Of course, that's a great point.
Not actually Werewolf of London. Its reference is to the Wolfman.
That would be funny if he went that meta, but I don't think. Yeah, even he was probably like, I'm going to avoid Henry Hall on this one.
Henry Hall, who's that? Lon Chaney Jr. is where it's at.
With the exception of me asking you to watch this, would you ever return to this movie ever?
Most likely not, unless I'm doing like just a really big Universal monster where I just kind of marathon where I go through everything, including kind of all the side movies, all the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, kind of all pretty much everything in the Universal kind of sphere at that time. Which I have done before especially with the Hammer movies, because those, in my opinion, the Hammer movies go a lot deeper than the Universal movies. Universal movies, it's kind of it's the cream rises to the top, and there's not that much underneath it. You kind of get the classics, and then everything else was just kind of forgotten for a reason. With the Hammer movies, pretty much everything that they put out, there's something to recommend about it, and it's something interesting to watch. And so a lot of those kind of unsung or forgotten Hammer movies, I would go back to in a heartbeat before I'd ever go back to something like Werewolf of London, or even something like Dracula's Daughter. Any of those kind of B-tier Universal movies.
I think there's almost even more charm to. I just saw this the other day. It was from I think 1957. It's called Blood of Dracula, and really it's about a girl that goes to like an all-girls school, and her professor basically has this emulet that you can turn her into Dracula. It's like a B- movie, but there's still a charm to it. It's something that like Mystery Science Theater would have done. But,
definitely,
but yeah, there's still some charm to those too.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Joseph, thank you for doing this. And no, really, thank you for doing this, because this was not super fun for you, but it's always fun to chat about. And sometimes it's good just to talk about films that aren't your favorites.
Exactly, especially when you can compare and contrast with different films that are related to them like this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you're going to be back on real soon, so thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoy this podcast and are an iTunes user, please do the show a favor and head on over to the official iTunes page for Damn Good Movie Memories. Be sure to leave a rating and a review. This will allow the show to appear higher in the algorithm and spread the joy of this podcast to the masses. If you are not an iTunes user, you can still listen and subscribe on Podbean at damngoodmoviememories.podbean.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook under our Damn Good Movie Memories page. You can also listen to a limited number of episodes on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and be sure to tune in next week for an all-new episode of Damn Good Movie Memories.